All right, so 5.2 on its way out. Who knows when it at this point, but checking out Paladin changes overall, talk about implications, just a brief overview of what is changing and why I think it's going to be important. Uh, Preface this by saying this is not, this is not priest, this is not mage. These changes aren't really substantial, but there is some stuff hidden beneath the lines that should be brought up that we're gonna have to talk about. Okay, so first thing on the list, we're just gonna read through this and I'm gonna give my opinions on it. Okay, Light's hammer now applies a 50% snare for 2 seconds to targets that take damage from the area effect. So this is a really, really good change. First thing I see that's like, thank God, because Light's Hammer is such a good heal, but so many people fucking move out of it in both PvE and PvP, right? Obviously, that it seems like you can't even take it anymore. Like it's just almost useless unless you're always stacked. So what that does is it's going to make people likely take an extra tick of it, even if they are moving out of it, and can even be used cross-directionally in PvE now. So think about this. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but I'm thinking of an ad fight, perhaps like Will of the Emperor. Everybody's stacked up, ads are hitting them, the hammer's already down, okay, because everybody's getting healed by it, and then an ad walks through it and they get snared. That's going to work, right? So that's going to slow the ad. It's not groundbreaking changes, but it is a cool change that I like. It makes sense. It really does, because it's so easy to see and so easy to move out of, even for people that are meant to be standing in it, like your team. You know what I mean? Next one is Hand of Purity. Now reduces all incoming damage by 10%. Thank God. Thank God. Thank you. I mean, thank you for making it a useful spell. Honestly, I have never found, at least as a Holy Paladin, I have never found a use for this. Can anybody tell me a use for Hand of Purity? Like maybe Arena or something? I have no idea. But I have never found a use for this. And now that it's also 10%, you know what I mean? That's not the best thing in the world, but at least as a tank or even as a healer, you could use that. It's a very short cooldown. Use it constantly. You could stagger it. You could use it with other cooldowns. You could, it's good to have that option, because its main effect is essentially useless in my opinion. Next thing, Eternal Flames periodic heal now provides 100% more healing when self cast. I mean, hell, that's going to be good. I use Eternal Flame always, so if I use that myself, I'll get more healing, but it's not going to be a conscious thing. Obviously, a PvP thing. I think they're trying to make Rets more viable in PvP, which is understandable. But then Judgment now costs 5% of base mana. Yeah, I don't. Irrelevant, you know what I mean? Repentance now has a cast time of 1.7 seconds, was 1.5 seconds. Once again, I mean, maybe in Arena, but I don't even take Repentance. You know what I mean? Why would you? I don't. There's nothing to CC in PvE at all. And even in challenge modes, which I've been doing recently on my Paladin, I mean, you could CC, but the stun is better. Like, Fist of Justice is better to have. So it's like, yeah, I don't know what they're doing there, why they would make that longer. Sacred Shield's absorb effect can now be dispelled. Irrelevant to me. Perhaps an Arena or something like that is important, but I mean, I don't use Sacred Shield. I don't know. I mean, maybe if you're tanks are the only ones that I would recommend using Sacred Shield. Otherwise, a scaling with Holy Power Hot seems a lot better, considering it will put some Mastery Absorb on as well. Anyway, Selfless Healer now boosts Flashlight down about 13% for each, 40% maximum. So that's a bad thing, obviously, but that's a nerf. But once again, Selfless Healer. Who's using this stuff, man? I don't know. But maybe Rets in Arena. I'm not. I've never touched Selfless Healer. Obviously, if it was healing for, if it needed that big of a nerf, it must have been overpowered. I can't attest. A Glyph of Blessed Life no longer requires Seal of Insight to be active. Quality of life change. It's fine, it's a good thing. Good to see. Glyph of Templar's Verdict can now activate from Exorcism. I don't actually know what the glyph is. So let's look before I look like an idiot. Okay, so too late, huh? I look like an idiot anyway. But You take 10% less damage for 6 seconds after dealing damage with Templar's Verdict. So I assume that's going to be and Exorcism. I mean, once again, are people using that glyph? I don't know. I guess it's probably good in Arena. I feel like all of these changes are with Arena in mind. So that's cool. That's obviously going to give them more survivability. That's really cool. Now we'll do holy specific stuff here. Blinding Light now has a 1.8 second cast time for Holy Paladins. Remains instant cast for the other two specs. Well, I guess this kind of is suck. Yeah, I mean, I never really use it in PvE, but once again, I understand why it would be used in PvP. But then at the same time, a blind in PvP, I don't know. It does suck because in challenge mode, Holy Paladins are the worst, and like by a large margin, in my opinion, the worst healer. Maybe druids are there as well, but Holy Paladins seem to be the worst. And the blind was a good thing to have, but I can't cast a 2-second blind that lasts for less than that. You know what I mean? It's not relevant. So it's whatever. They might as well just have taken it out. But anyway, the 4-piece PvP set bonus now grants Holy Power while casting Flashlight instead of Word of Glory. That's probably a good thing because Word of Glory is so spammable. I don't know why they would have ever actually considered that was a good idea. If Word of Glory granted Holy Power, and with DP, you could get all your Holy Power back, you'd end up like, that's just silly. You'd gain Holy Power from casting Word of Glory most of the time. That's ridiculous. But protection, do protection next. The base damage of Consecration has been increased by 789%. Are you kidding me? What the fuck? Ace Logo, what are you doing, dude? Yeah, you think that's ridiculous too? That's fucking wild. 789%. Obviously, it wasn't working the way they wanted it to, but Consecration is now back in a big way. It's going to scale less with attack power, but I mean, that's just that. Fuck, like what the fuck does that matter? It's nobody's stacking attack power on a fucking prop paladin. So I mean, yeah, that's a huge change. Consecration is actually going to do a lot of damage now, like a considerable amount. Compared to apparently it was just absolutely useless before, but I mean that's how Consecration's always been, right? But anyway, Retribution coming down the home stretch here. Sword of Light now increases Flashlight by 100%, was 30%. That's a good change. Like I said, these are all trying to keep Ret in PvP. I think as they're probably one of the weaker ones from what I understand, but PvE they're really strong, and the fact that Ret now has this inherent survivability that could be useful. There's not a lot of fights where this is useful, but overall, to be able to say, they have all these options to survive is pretty nuts. And then finally, the most important Paladin change on this whole list, okay, by a large fucking margin. When Hand of Sacrifice is cast by a rep Paladin, all harmful magic effects are removed from the party or raid member it's cast on, okay? Hand of Sacrifice, obviously you know what that is, but it's not something you kind of want to throw out there to do that. I feel like they did that to make it more superfluous, like extra bonus from using it. But one way or the other, this is what this does in PvE. Okay, it's going to, first of all, as I said, I'm pretty sure every Paladin is taking Clemency, the double sacks, right? Double hands. So, our rep Paladin uses it to help heal the tank, keep the tank alive when needed. But he kind of sits on it because, me and the other Holy Paladin, it's our job to do that. His job is to hit shit with his weapon, you know what I mean, and deal damage, use damaging abilities. So that's not really a thing that he wants to be concentrating on. But now that it can dispel a magic effect, all harmful magic effects, although I don't think there'll ever be more than one in PvE on at a time, that means that the 7 healers, right, because essentially the only people who could dispel magic effects are healers. And AoE dispels, like maybe a Shadow Priest could use Mass Dispel. But that's it. That's pretty much it. And now that Rep Paladins can do it as well, means think about fucking, what's it called? Elegon. Think about Heroic Elegon, right? 7 of them go out. Most people 5 or 6 heal that. So, like, there's always one person with that debuff on as the ad's exploding. It's like, Like, that guy's, you're fucked. I can't dispel you. Nobody in this raid, literally nobody can dispel you. We've all used it already. For 8 seconds, we're done. So that dude can throw it out if needed. You know what I mean? That adds another dispel. That's a really, really cool concept because of how limited dispelling is right now. And I like the way it is, but at the same time, it's like, it's too limited when you have to cut down on healers. So obviously in PvP, this is going to be even better. There's a lot of magic stuff going out in PvP, I'm assuming. So great changes. I like them. Paladins looking good. I mean, in my opinion, especially Holy, and maybe even Prot as well. I don't know about Rep, but these specs seem to be operating the way they want them to. In fact, I'm pretty sure Greg Street, Mr. GC, he said Holy Paladins are the model. You know what I mean? Everything else is balanced around them. And that makes sense because I play Holy. I play some in Battlegrounds, stuff like that as well. And it just feels perfect. I can control how much damage I take. I can control how much healing I do. I have some cooldowns, not overpowered cooldowns like totems. But I have throughput cooldowns, I have reduction cooldowns, I have a bubble, I have a lot of balanced tools where most other specs and classes don't. So I don't mind that Paladins aren't getting much changes in 5.2. Now let's focus on getting a fucking release date for this patch, or if somebody gets murdered.